So the last couple of years, I've been filming my gear list from both my wilderness hunting expeditions and also my whitetail hunts. It's been something that I've really enjoyed, kind of mulling over my gear, talking about the different pieces that I use, how I use them, and where they kind of fit. And then also just challenging myself every year to try different pieces, to gravitate towards different pieces, and also to get some input from the audience. I've had people recommend different gear pieces that I've implemented into my system this year, and it's actually went really, really well. This past September, I did another caribou hunt on the Alaska Peninsula. It's a place that absolutely will eat you alive if you're not prepared, and will test every bit of your gear. And this past year, I hunted the last 10 days or so of September, and just the natural flow of the trip, it leaks into October. Very windy, very wet. It's a great place to test gear. And so I just wanted to go over the different elements that I took on this trip. I was self-guided, so I had to basically, other than flying the airplane, I had to be in charge of all the other elements. The first segment here, I'm just going to go over clothing. It looks like I have very few items here, and I basically do because I hunted with camp on my back this year. If I was going to be in a place for 15, 20, 30 days and I was going to do a true base camp, I might have slightly heavier down jackets than I have here. I might have an extra pair of pants and another sweater. I might even have an additional rain jacket. But since I was hunting with camp on my back, literally kitchen, food, tent, sleeping bag, all my gear, all my hunting stuff, glass, everything. I always start with underwear. I know it's silly to say, but I've been trying a couple of different pieces this year for underwear. I've been using some bamboo underwear from Free Fly, and then I have some wool pieces, either from Smart Wool or this is from a company called Stio. And I just got a couple of new pairs from a company called Labent. It's all merino based. Other than the bamboo, it's all merino based. Boxer briefs. They just fit really well and they function really well when you're hiking. They retain almost zero smell. So on a 10-day trip, I'll bring 2 pairs of underwear max. Sometimes I might even bring 1 pair of underwear. I know it sounds disgusting at home, but on a trip like this, it's not a problem at all. Darn tough socks. I do try other socks and I try other cuts and other lengths and other weights, but darn tough socks are my go-to every single time. If you wear them out, they send you a brand new pair in the mail. It's a lifetime guarantee. So maybe once a year, I'll send back a pair that I've had for several years and they send me a brand new pair. But I really like the weight. I think I use kind of their medium hiking weight boot length sock, and it just functions really, really well. And I love having that idea of sending the socks back and they just send you a brand new pair. The last couple of years, I've been using -33 merino wool long underwear. I'll bring 1 set of pants and 1 top. They are on my body for basically the entire trip unless we get some unseasonably warm temperatures or I get absolutely soaked or I have to take them off to dry them for a day or whatever. But -33, they just make really nice long underwear. I've had this particular set I've had for years. They're now just starting to get a couple of holes in them. But as you can see, here's the top. Basically looks like brand new. And I have worn this since we filmed Winds of Adak. I bought these on my way to Adak that year. I've had them for several years. And this pair of pants is really pretty good. My other pair of bottoms, the crotch is pretty blown out, but I snagged them on something and tore them. Down is something that is pivotal in my system, should be pivotal in everyone's system. I try to bring as much down as possible without, being oversized in my pack or being overweight. I'll start here with this Kuiu piece. I did not bring this year on this caribou hunt, but I missed it. This is just a lightweight, I think they call it like the down sweater or super down sweater. It's a half zip. Believe it or not, generally when I'm going to go to down, when I'm feeling cold or going to be sitting glassing for a while, I'll put this on first because it's much lighter than the jacket that I bring, or generally much lighter than the jacket that I bring. This year I didn't bring it because I was trying to save weight and trying to reduce footprint in my backpack because I was hunting with camp on my back, but I missed it. I wish I would have brought it because it packs up. It's nothing. I mean, it literally is gone. You roll it all up and it disappears. The jacket I did bring this year, again, was lighter weight than I normally bring, but this is a Fjallraven packable Expedition Light pack hoodie. Super, super warm, super light, super packable. That's what all of this down represents, is ultimate warmth for ultimate packability. And this, you just tuck it all the way up in the hood. And when you're not wearing it, If I'm just going to my Kuiu piece, literally just rolls all the way up and stuffs in the hood, sits in your pack. You barely even notice it's there. But if you need it, it's going to increase your warmth like you wouldn't believe. And so if I'm going to be really cold, or I'm going to be stuck in some weather for several days, or I'm going to have to sleep on the side of the mountain where I kill my animal, or I get stranded crossing a river, there's an accident, whatever it may be, I'm able to put all of this down on and basically mimic my sleeping bag, use it as a second sleeping bag, and also use it as just a mental recheck to put all this on and feel warm for a couple of hours, or feel warm overnight, whatever it may be. But down it's the ultimate warmth for weight ratio. Down pants, I bring the Kuiu, I don't know what they call it, Kuiu Super Down or whatever. These are hands down the best down pants I've ever found. The material they kind of have this abrasion resistant knee pad and butt pad on them. The loft is really, really good. They have full side zips, so you can put them on. You know, if I'm standing there glassing a ram or a big caribou and it's not raining and I'm getting really cold and I want to keep as warm as I can in case I might have to go after this animal, I'll unzip this. I'll put it right over my hiking boots, all the way up over my pants, zip it down, warm up, and then when it's time to go, unzip, throw it in my pack. I'm not taking my boots off, putting my boots on. You can tell that the boys designed this. You can tell that they use their gear. You can tell that these guys spend time in the mountains with the form and functionality of this. You can look at somebody's gear and really kind of tell who they are and how they're using it. New this year, I don't know what they call this, but I brought this Fjallraven down bomber hat. This thing's amazing. I don't think I'll ever go on another trip without it. Again, most of the time it lived in my pack because this was my ultimate bad day head covering. I did put it on at night a couple of times. I had some ice storms, wind storms that were, blowing 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. It never did, but a couple of nights were supposed to blow over 100. This is just the ultimate piece to put on when your back's against the wall, or you just want to have a little bit more peaceful night's sleep and just to warm up a little bit. But again, packs down to nothing, weighs nothing, but this is your lifeline outside of your rain gear. And you have your natural, you have your natural clothing, your normal clothing, your tops and your bottoms. The down is really part of the system that you can ramp up or take down to really increase your warmth. You have to keep it dry, of course. If it gets wet, it's a little use to you. That's where the wools come in. But as long as you're diligent in keeping it dry, it really forms a lot of function within the system. My top that I wore on this entire trip is a Fjallraven. I think they call it an Ovik knit sweater. And their sweaters are just really good. It's obviously wool. It retains no scent whatsoever. It's very, very warm. Even when it's soaking wet, it's warm. So if your raincoat does fail, or you get caught out in the elements, or you fall through the ice or fall crossing a river, this stuff keeps you warm when it's wet. Super quiet, which I was rifle hunting this year, so that wasn't on the forefront of my mind. But the warmth and you're not smelling like a goat after a couple of days is really a good thing. Trousers, I took Fjallraven again. This year I tried the Vita Pro ventilated. That's Vita, V-I-D-D-A, Vita Pro ventilated. Really cool pant, really technical pant. Kind of have built-in gaiters, which was pretty cool for this year because I didn't bring gaiters. I talked to Kevin Dana at Barney's, who's a dear friend of mine. I communicate with him often, bounce ideas with him, and I just asked him, I said, should I bring gaiters? And I was just basically talking out loud. He's like, yes, I'd bring gaiters. I always wear gaiters, and I always wear gaiters. I can't even recall the trip where I didn't take gaiters. And this year I just thought, I'm doing a gear review. I'm going to give this a shot. I've never not brought gaiters. I'm not going to bring gaiters. And I didn't bring gaiters, and I never even noticed them. I never ever noticed that they were gone. And I hiked a lot, climbed a lot. I wasn't getting rocks in my boots. My boots weren't any more wet than they would have been otherwise. I felt really good without gaiters. I'm not saying I'm going to go gaiter free on every trip now, but these pants function very well. They have the side zips for cooling off, but I really like these pants. I do want to try some of the some different models in the future, and I'll be sure to incorporate that and then talk about it. Rain gear, I brought a full Fjallraven system, the Bertagen or Bertagen, pretty heavy duty pant, with kind of a rash guard, if you will, or abrasion resistance, patches on the inside of the bottoms, and then the Eco shell top. They function great. This is a trip that is very, very wet, and I was in my rain gear a lot. Still smells like caribou. I was in my rain gear a lot, but this is also a trip, and I knew this. This is the style of trip that if it's raining that hard and I'm relatively close to my camp or near camp, which this year I traveled with my camp on my back, but I'm not necessarily going to drop down and set up my tent. But if I'm near my camp and it starts raining that hard, I'm just going to go hop into my shelter or get underneath the tarp and get out of the rain. But I'm not just going to sit in the elements and just get absolutely crushed by rain. I'm going to try to find some sort of shelter, whether that be in the alders, in my tent, or just trying to wait it out. But I saw a lot of rain this year. Not a lot that just rained all day steady, but big storms that would come through and they'd rain for an hour or two and then move on. But the rain gear worked fine this year. I can really hike in this stuff, and it kept me dry. So it did its job. I'm going to keep trying different things in the rain gear department, but this stuff did quite well this year. I always bring wool fingerless gloves, or very often I bring wool fingerless gloves, either Filson. They have seen better days, but I really like Filson. Sometimes I use bison wool gloves from a company here in Wisconsin called North Star Bison, and it's really good, really warm. And this stuff is surprisingly warm when it's soaking wet, and it's surprising how warm it will keep your hand. And even though they're fingerless, and these are mostly now palmless, but even though they're in such disarray, it's still something to have on your hand, still something to keep you going. I bought these mittens from Barney's. My friend Kevin Dana owns Barney's. His predecessor, Bob, was a good friend of mine. I've been going to Barney's for a very long time, but these are Hestra mittens. These things are ridiculously expensive, I would say, for a mitten, and they are one of the pieces of gear that I won't leave home without. They do have gloves. It's a whole system. I didn't bring the gloves this year because, again, I was trying to cut ounces here and there. I regret it. I wish I would have brought the glove because it's much easier when your hands are soaked. It's much easier to put the mitten on and off if you have the glove on, and you can move much faster for glass and getting your gun, loading your gun, whatever it is that you're doing. But these are waterproof or extremely water resistant. I don't want to misspeak, but they are toasty warm. They can make a really bad day not such a bad day. And when you have to go long distances in some serious elements, these things are money. I highly recommend these. I have a pair of these that I ski with, and then this pair that I hunt with. You know, they have these little wrist things like you'd put on a little kid, and I've even found myself using them. And a couple of times I thought I dropped my mitten in a river, and then I look, and then there it is dangling. I was like, oh, sweet, got the little cuff. Headgear, I just wore a DV hat. You know, they're super warm, and obviously we sell them, so they're amazing. And then my footwear, same boot I've been wearing the last several years, Cirrus 2 GTX from Hanwag. Really good boot, really stiff boot, waterproof. They just move really well. They hug my foot really well. The fit and the finish and the robustness of this boot give me a lot of confidence when I'm going up and coming down. Anyone that knows, anyone that has done any serious backpacking or climbing, and you have all that weight on your back, like this is your connection to Mother Earth, and it's really important to have the right boot. I've definitely found a marriage with this boot. I like the blue ones because I like a little color in my life, but they also sell kind of a gray-green. But there's the Cirrus 2 GTX from Hanwag. And for the most part, that's my clothes system. I'm wearing most of this. There's very few clothes in my actual backpack. My rain gear is stored in a manner in my pack that I can get to it instantly. It's always in a very top pack. You don't want to ever pack your rain gear away. I go to these things as a last resort because I want to know that I have warm hands sitting in my pack. I go to these things like a down hat or my additional down jacket as a last resort, my down pants as a last resort. I'll sleep with these things in my sleeping bag to be really cozy. I'll push them down by my feet, or I'll lay them over my chest, however it is. But everything is adaptable. That's what these systems are. Is we're trying to create these kind of links of adaptation. If it's going to get super wet, this is what you do. If it's going to be a super dry and beautiful trip, this is what you do. If I would have hit last week of September and it would have been unseasonably warm and very little wind and almost no rain, you know, I would have had my pants, I would have popped my long undies off, I would have opened up my vents, I would have stripped layers off, and most of this would have lived in my backpack. But stacking on as it's getting colder, and the bottom line is, if you're doing cool stuff, and I do consider this to be cool stuff, if you're doing cool stuff, you're going to be a little bit wet. You're going to be a little bit cold. You're going to be a little bit miserable. There is no system that is foolproof. It's who you are as a person, how you're using it to protect your body and save your life, and be able to go into these beautiful places and do incredible things. And hunting truly wild caribou on the Alaska Peninsula is a way of getting your meat, is one of the coolest things you can do. Next section, starting with my pack. This is from Barney Sport Chalet in Anchorage. A good friend of mine, Kevin Dana, owns that store. And this is a Frontier Gear external frame backpack that they design and make there. Unbelievable pack. Unbelievable for carrying your gear. I'm moving amongst the mountains with great confidence, and it just has a great structure to it. Carries very, very nice. They redesigned the shoulder straps this year, redesigned hip belts. He put a new fabric out for the bag. It's a Challenge Ultra sailcloth, very abrasion resistant, waterproof, which the Barney's packs have never been waterproof before. And I can't say enough about this backpack. If you're a serious backpack hunter, serious mountain hunter, even if you work with another company, I'm not kidding you, everyone should have one of these in their repertoire. The thing moves weight like nothing else. Just confidence inspiring. For me to have this external frame, to actually have this to lash antlers to use as a structure to set up some sort of shelter in a pinch, to have this on your back while being mauled by a bear. I know that sounds really ridiculous, but if you have to roll onto your tummy like a shell bug while a big brown bear, grizzly bear is ripping at your back trying to get to you, I'd much rather have this than the soft shell pack. This material is waterproof. However, years ago when I bought a pack from Bob Hodson, the previous owner before Kevin, his packs used to come with a rain pack, and this is the original rain cover that I got from Bob. It's old Realtree, and I just think it is so freaking wickedly cool, and it still just is really functional. I spray it down every year if need be, but I brought it this year because my pack is going to sit on the outside of my camp this year, on the outside of my tent. I just brought a solo single person tent. I hiked and hunted with camp on my back, as I've stated. And so I wanted to be able, leaving my pack outside, I just wanted to have that ultra confidence of getting all buttoned up at night or getting all buttoned up during a storm, get all my gear in there, all my clips buttoned down, everything lashed down tight. I like having that peace of mind. And then I would just wrap this thing around and get it all totally hidden, buttoned up, and lay it on its shoulder straps on the back so the rain would just literally roll off. It's just a great system. I can't say enough about this pack. I will always have one of these packs. And Kevin Dana is a really cool, soulful guy. And I like the reasons why he hunts. I like the fact that he knows why he hunts. And his store is probably the coolest store I've ever been in as far as like backpacking gear, hunting gear. This year, I used a Hilleberg solo tent, one-man freestanding tent, very packable, very easy to set up. Just a couple of poles, throw the clasps on, stake it down, and it's really, really good. It functioned great, looked great, disappeared amongst the hills, and that's really, really what I wanted. And because I hunted with camp on my back, I did where the primary landing location where Jeremy landed me, I did bring a Kafaru tarp. Basically, I stored additional food, some safety gear, just some things that I thought I might need in a pinch. I stored underneath this tarp, rolled it out, stacked all my gear in the center, and just staked it really, really tight to the ground so it'd be less appealing to bears when I wasn't there. Basically set it up 2 yards from a major brown bear trail just because there's a lot of bears where I was hunting, but I set up as low profile as possible. I kind of like tucked it in amongst some dwarf willows, keep my gear secure, including food. Like I said, additional safety gear or whatever, but the solo tents and this system was really, really nice. I hunted with Jeremy last year. I did a base camp style, and so I was hiking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles away from camp every single day. And it was just a lot of work. Whether I found the bull that I was looking for and killed him, then now I'm with this bull late at night and having to traverse all this territory in the dark. And so this year I just thought, I want to hunt with camp on my back. I want to have that presence of when I kill my caribou, or if I kill my caribou, that I can actually set up right next to him and just camp right there, eat, rather than be in a rush and having to cover 4 or 5 miles at night in the pouring rain and thinking about bears and crossing all these ravines. I was just thinking about that peace of mind of just camping right at the bull. My sleeping pad I used a Sea to Summit. This is a Comfort Light. They make another one that's in all black that I'm going to order for this next year. This is a great sleeping pad. It's small, and one of the things that I really love about it is it stays underneath your sleeping bag better than most. It kind of has this dimpled, this pitted surface to it, and when it inflates, it kind of creates a little texture that your sleeping bag grabs onto, and it kind of lays out in the belly of the tent. It's just a really nice piece to go underneath your sleeping bag, and I really like these guys. And I've used a lot of other sleeping pads. You've seen me talk about other sleeping pads, but some of the sleeping pads out there, while they blow up really tall and they're lightweight because they're so narrow and so tall, they're never underneath you. So it's almost an irrelevance to have them. Safety blanket, one of these is always in my pack. I actually use one that's smaller than this, but it's in another set of gear that I have in another camp right now. And so I just grabbed this as a visual aid. But these things are invaluable if you get in an airplane crash or you swamp a boat or you get caught at your animal or whatever it may be. Like, this is a really great way to save your butt in the middle of the night. I'm going to move on to my sleeping bag, and then I'll talk about food. I did not use my Wiggies bag this year. I brought a hydrophobic down bag. I'm not going to name the company. I'm not going to name the bag. I don't want to talk poorly about anyone because that bag that I used is excellent. I would use it again and will use it again. I just won't use it again in this environment. I told myself a couple of years ago, I took that very same bag on a moose hunt, and I had 15 days of straight rain. I got my butt absolutely kicked, and that bag was all but worthless. I have a full Wiggy system here at the cabin that I travel with at times. And last year, because I was hunting with camp on my back, because I was riding that line of ultra lightweight and trying to reduce my footprint in my backpack, I didn't bring my Wiggies bag, but I should have and will next year. And I will never hunt the Alaska Peninsula again without it. It's just that peace of mind of this thing keeping you warm when it's soaked is invaluable. The down, even the hydrophobic down, it goes away in a hurry. I love down sleeping bags, but when I'm in really wet conditions, I'll be using my Wiggies from here on out. Cooking this year, I usually use an MSR reactor stove. I love it. Jeremy and the boys will get me canisters of gas, or if I'm up in the Arctic, I'll get canisters of gas from whomever. And that stove boils water super fast, and it's really good for about 1.5 of these dinners to warm up. So, or probably 2. I can probably do 2 with a pot of water, or do 1 with some coffee or whatever. This year, I found this system. I don't have it with me again. It's in another gear set, but I have the box, the wind burner system. Primary reason I brought this, even though it's a larger footprint, I wanted to have the frying pan to cook caribou in camp, because there's not any wood to burn on the peninsula, or very little wood. If you're on the ocean or you're on a river, you can find driftwood, but up in the mountains, there's virtually nothing. And even despite doing that, I didn't cook any of my caribou at camp because a couple of 100-mile-an-hour windstorms were coming, and basically had to boil off the mountain in a haste. So that's what hunting the peninsula is about. Things I liked about this system: the stove folds up really tightly. The legs come in. It's really sturdy when you set it up, but the legs fold in. It has a really nice frying pan, really nice pot, and everything kind of folds up really, really neatly. The gas hose wraps around. You can get everything really compact inside that pot, and then the frying pan just kind of rides on top. What I didn't like about it was when I light my reactor stove, it fires up right away. The grate on it gets red hot right away, and I know it's just going on all cylinders. I would light this. I would use a flint stone to light it rather than a lighter. I was using a flint. I never really knew when it was lit. It didn't have a robust like to it. It didn't turn bright red right away, and it took forever. Like, they sold this as a system, windproof modular group system. And because I'm traveling with a couple of photographers, I thought this will be fantastic for the 3 of us, heating up water, and then we're going to be in an area of a lot of wind. It did not do as advertised. I would definitely buy this again. I just wouldn't take it on this type of trip. It worked awesome when I used it inside the vestibule, which, you know, they really advise against doing, but everyone does it when you're in really nasty weather. It lit way easier in the vestibule. It ran way more efficient, of course, windproof in the vestibule. It still took much, much longer to boil water with this system than it does the MSR reactor. And the reactor stove seems to work really, really well in heavy wind, heavy rain. Would I use this system again? Yes. Am I going to sell it? No, but I prefer my reactor stove. Didn't purify water on this trip, but I did have a series of dromedary bags. I'm really trying to think of the other water bag that I use because I love it, but stay tuned. Maybe I'll add it in the notes. Again, it's in another group of gear that I have that's not at this cabin right now. But I used the platypus system to purify water. I didn't purify any water on this trip. I was up in the mountains the whole time, so the streams just come out of the mountain perfectly clear and cold and beautiful to drink and using your food. Food system on this trip, breakfast consists of, I use a lot of peak refuel. I think Chad has done a brilliant job with constructing these meals, or whoever he works with to construct these meals. Breakfast is usually one of these and then potentially a bar. This is strawberry and granola with dried milk. It's very, very good. Like, you could eat this at home. It's fantastic, but that would be breakfast. Lunch would be protein bar, some dried mango, some jerky, some dried salmon, things like that. And then dinner, just one of the many dinners that they make. I used to do a lot of Mountain House. Now I do a lot of these guys. But it's a really good, rewarding way to have a warm meal at the end of the day. You know, I carry a clean canteen, stainless steel water bottle for all of our drinking. And like I said, these water bags that I use, I can't recall what they are, but they're really, really cool. They roll up teeny tiny that hold a liter and a half. But that's camp in a nutshell. That is backpack to tent, sleeping system. Can't say enough about the Barneys. I think everyone should have one. I'm not kidding you. I don't even care if you're just hanging on the walls and art piece. I think you should have one. The Hillberg solo tent. I brought this because of the wind and because of the rain. And if you're bringing a tent because of the wind and the rain, then that means that tent will function anywhere in the world. And it did. The solo was really nice. Nice little vestibule, nice little sleeping chamber. I felt very safe in it. Even when I was going to have, I was talking to Jeremy on my InReach, and he was telling me that it was going to blow 100 miles an hour in 2 days. Total confidence in this tent. All I was going to do is I was going to drop off the mountain a couple hundred feet and nestle into the alders where the bears would be and just sleep it out down there with those guys. But it never ended up actually developing. It blew like 50, 60, something like that. This tent can handle that with bells on. Being an observer is probably the most rewarding thing outside of sharing the meat from the animal with your friends and family afterwards, or sharing it with a village or pilot or whatever you're doing with the animal after you kill it. But watching the world go by while in the wilderness or in your backyard that is the greatest gift of being a hunter, a fisherman, a birder, however you want to classify it. If you're a person that goes outside, sits in the quiet and watches the world kind of go by using glass, it's incredibly rewarding to see things closer up. I've told this story a couple of times. I took a photography class in college. I did a series of photos during a cardiovascular surgery. I worked in cardiovascular surgery when I was in college, and I did a series of photos inside of a surgical procedure. And I was showing my professor, and I was coming up with my final project. I had to pick a 5-photo series to present to him. There were some of the photos that were quite graphic, and he ended up picking this one photo. He's like, "This one's my favorite." And it was a very detailed, very tight, close-in photo. And I was really shocked that he didn't take one of the more sensational scenes in the photos. I said, "Why this one?" And he said, "The closer you become to something, the more interesting it becomes." And I will never, ever forget that. And it is true in everything in life. And using binoculars and spotting scopes is that very detail in life. It's bringing wildlife, the wild world, closer to your eye, closer into your brain. It's such a treat, and it's such a reward. So I use Maven binoculars. I've used them for longer than I can remember. I use the Maven B1.2s. Maven makes a whole host of binoculars. They even make several models that are nicer than this model, but this is the model that really speaks to my eye, really allows my brain to interpret the information well. Some of the other models that they make might even be a little bit clearer than this model here. This is the one that I like to use. It's the B1.2s. I will never, ever have these things outside of my hands. I use very often, more often than not, I'll use one of these really simple bino harnesses. Just elastic, just goes over your shoulders. You can tighten it, loosen it. The guy that makes this one, I think it's D. Ferguson. You can find him on Instagram or on his YouTube or on his website or whatever, but I think it's D Fergus or D Ferguson, something like that. But this is the binocular that I love. I beat these things relentlessly. I never put the covers on them ever. The lenses get completely destroyed. The eye cups get completely destroyed, and it never ever affects the clarity for me. They're just really, really tough. I also use a Maven spotting scope. This is their 1.2, I believe it's called. I like the curved eyepiece when I'm looking at sheep particularly, or anything, I guess, in the mountains, and I'm looking downhill rather than sticking my head and my whole body up over the cliff. You can loosen this, rotate it down, and then you can actually look around corners, look down hills, and be a little bit more discreet. This year, for the first time ever, I purchased two Vets tripod, carbon tripod. This thing is super badass. A good friend of mine, Tanner Anderson, and I were on a brown bear hunt a couple of springs ago out in Alaska, and he is a very, very talented rifleman, and he had a two Vets tripod that he just carries in his gear, carries in his kit for glassing off of and also shooting his rifle off of if need be. And I fell in love with his system when I was in camp with him, and in between glassing for bears and looking for bears, we would shoot our rifles a lot down on this frozen river, and I was using his two Vets tripod. This is the infill, but it's really cool. It's a really good, I have two of them this height, and then I have another one that's even bigger, but I took this one because it's more of the backpacking style. Very sturdy, easy to move. It's just a great tripod, and you can switch out different heads on it. Really, really cool. So great system, and I used a Maven rangefinder. Obviously, knowing the range is super, super important. Coolest thing about this rangefinder, I didn't use it really in Alaska, this feature, but if you put it, there's a toggle on the side here, field or forest, and when you put it on forest, and I don't know how it works, but if you range a white-tailed deer as it's walking past your tree stand, it's in the trees, in the brush, it'll range the deer, not the brush. Really cool technology. So this is my first year. I purchased a Montana Knife Company Blackfoot 2.0. One of the best knives I've ever used in my life, if not the best knife I've used in my life. The weight, the lack of material on this knife, yet the sturdiness and the strength of this blade is exceptional. I love how small the blade is, working around different joints, working down the spine, working down little tight little areas, removing the neck meat, walking down over the spinal column, but then also taking joints off, taking the hips off, cutting off at the elbow. The area that I was in Alaska, I have to take the animal out in 4/4, and then the different meat systems. So the neck meat, the back strap, the inner loins, the meat on the bottom of the neck, and the brisket. And so there's a lot of cutting. I did my entire caribou with this knife. I've done several animals with this knife now. I don't know all the other line of knives that Montana Knife Company offers, but I'm going to very likely be buying more of their blades. I know a good friend of mine, Cole Kramer, designed looks like a big bear skinning knife. I don't know if I have much of a use for that knife, but I'm going to buy one because it looks super cool. I think it'd be awesome for like fleshing out a moose hide or fleshing out a brown bear hide. But Montana Knife Company Blackfoot 2.0, it's a lot of knife for a very little package. I'm sure I'll lose it soon and have to buy a new one. That's how I do it with knives, but awesome knife. I use Caribou Gear game bags. This is a moose pack. This is not as big as the Caribou pack's, much, much smaller than this. And what I do is they come in these really cool packs. I strip them down. I'm not going to do it right now, I guess, but I strip them down, or maybe I am. I strip it down. I take all the bags out of here, and it has everything listed. They come with zip ties. They come with name tags. It's a really smart system. I've used them the last 3 years. This is the Moose Magnum pack. Comes with 8 game bags. They make them for all different size animals. Very convenient. You can see on the back, it has your cut, name, has little zip ties to attach to everything, so you keep everything really clean and tidy, and you know what is yours and where it's going. And I know when I've used these in different camps around the globe that a lot of people have a lot of positive comments, and they ask, like, hey, where'd you get those? Very nice game bags. I highly recommend them. So I get my gear from different inspirations. Sometimes I see somebody, a buddy of mine using a piece of gear. That's how I got to the Two Vets tripod. Or I'll see another guy using it in their system, and I'll steal bits and pieces and use it in my own. See it in a catalog. I'll see it at a trade show. And I just, as I get inspired by a design of something or the construction, and actually this piece comes from you guys. So after my last gear list that I did on the Alaska Peninsula, I got a lot of messages telling me to check out this Peaks Backcountry Duo headlamp. And so I went and purchased 2 of them for this year. And I love this headlamp. It's really, really cool. The headlamp itself pops out of the holder. I think they could come up with a bunch of different designs knowing that they have this configuration for a chest light, for a light that clips onto your backpack, a light that clips onto, whatever. It's just a really smart design. It's an aluminum body, so it's really tough. It's rechargeable. If you hold the button down for 4 seconds, the light will beep, stays off in your pack, locks it and off. Depending on the light configuration that you have on when it's on and you're using it, super bright light or the red light or the quiet white light or quiet red light, when you turn it off, turn it back on, it goes right back to that setting, so you don't have to toggle through and find the system again. I really like this. The last couple of years I've been using a headlamp from another company. Actually, the last decade I've been using a headlamp from a different company. But the last 2 headlamps that I purchased from that company have broken in not even a week. And I won't purchase stuff from them anymore, but I don't know what happened to their construction, but this is a really good headlamp. So I appreciate you guys writing me and telling me to check it out. If you have any other suggestions, please do so. I love it. Last year when I hunted on the peninsula, I used True Velocity 6.8. And this year I used their 308. Now, some of you have probably not seen this before. It is a plastic cased rifle ammunition. It's a Texas-based company. They are very, very interesting technologists, very, very smart designers, very smart engineer. This is about 30-some% lighter than a normal brass-cased ammunition. Very, very accurate, very controlled burn at the shot. No heat transfer to the weapon, which doesn't mean a whole lot in a bolt gun, but means a whole lot with a machine gun. This company is revolutionary. I love these guys. Really, really cool stuff. And I've used their 308 before. I shot a moose in Maine with their 308, but I want to take it to Alaska this time. And I did so in a new weapon to me, and a new weapon configuration to me. Everything is new to me about this style of gun. This is a rifle from a company named Q, just the letter Q. This is a weapon that they make called the Fix. It is a single piece receiver. The bolt is a 45-degree short throw, very easy to rack another round. Has a magazine, external magazine, and a fully adjustable stock. I've never hunted with a chassis or an AR style platform before, but I found it incredibly, incredibly functional. I wasn't sure I was even going to feel about the aesthetics, but they grew on me tenfold. I just found myself in camp looking at my rifle. I found when I got up in the morning, I looked at my rifle. It was just something that drew my attention. The stock is fully adjustable, obviously for length of pull, cheek piece. The stock folds in, add a little pressure, drops down out of a dovetail and folds up against the gun in case you're packing it away to pack for some distance. I topped it with a Maven 2.5 by 15 with 44 for a distal objective, 44 millimeter distal objective. It's an awesome rifle scope. I wish I had a bunch of these in my safe. Really, really cool configuration. I put a Q Trash Panda, funny name, but I put a Q Trash Panda silencer on the end of the gun. I've never hunted suppressed before. I've shot a little bit of suppressed weapons, mostly suppressed machine guns while doing some production work, but this is my first time hunting suppressed. And shooting this on the range suppressed was incredible. Hunting with this gun suppressed was remarkable. It shot so beautifully. It was so quiet. And I had never really hunted with a gun of this configuration. But I'll tell you, when I was in bear country and when I was moving through the alders and I'd have my pack on, I started to realize how functional the AR platform is rather than having a normal bolt gun. I just felt very, very quick and very steady. I dropped my scope way down. The place that I was hunting has a lot of really big bears. I'd have my magazine full. I kept a couple of rounds on the side. The Small Arms Ammunition Company has these really cool little attachments. And I just felt the gun very, very carry friendly in both a hunting stance and then also for any sort of defense against a bear or whatever else it may be. Even the safety, having an AR style system. I've never served in the military, so this is a system that isn't necessarily familiar to me from service, but it became very, very familiar to me while carrying it every day. Even back to kind of telling the stories of how I dress and the backpack that I use and how I use them, the pieces of gear that I use and how they kind of fit my system. And then when I finally shot my caribou with this, I laid it over my backpack and I was able to kind of stuff my magazine well into the backpack, really get my head down on the gun and really have a good shooting stance. And it was kind of having a secondary point of impact or a secondary point of contact against my backpack, pushing the gun in and having it rest down. And it just felt incredibly steady. Honestly, I never thought I would hunt with a gun that looked like this or carried like this. And now I don't know that I want to hunt with a gun that isn't shaped or carries like this. It's just a very smart design. I've just been much more of a traditional guy, a woodstock guy, an old style configuration, but as far as fit and form and function, this thing excels in literally every category. I can't recommend this system enough. The Q Fix, I loved it. I can't wait to hunt with it again. And I don't know if they'll actually do it for me, but I'd love for them to build me one of these in a 6.8 PVC and a bunch of other calibers as well. But check them out, Q Fix. Up next, the Garmin devices that I use. One of my favorite things in the world. I was using the 66i with all the maps and all the features that this has as my inReach for my communication device and my SOS device for if I'm on an airplane crash or I get mauled by a bear or whatever it happens to be, and I need to be found by the Coast Guard or the Alaska State Troopers or wherever. I've been carrying this thing and I love this thing. But I noticed all the pilots that I fly with using a Mini. And I noticed other dudes that I hold in very high regard, some SF guys and different guys that do a lot of work in the backcountry using the Mini. And this always scared me over this, and I really didn't have a reason why. But this year I bought a Mini. This is what I'll be using from now on. This, I just could attach it to my pack strap, and it using in conjunction with my cell phone. It has all the features of this, including maps and the SOS and the communication. It's a fraction of the weight, and I'm never messing with this device. And so I'm never messing with the buttons. I'm just literally working through my cell phone and keep a little charging bank with me for a 10 or 12 day hunt, and I can keep my cell phone charged and keep this guy charged. And this thing lasts a long time. I never had to charge it. Really, really smart design. I'll definitely be using a inReach Mini. I think this is the Mini 2 from now on. Super Cubs have these two steel struts, and this is always just hanging right on one of those struts. So if those guys use it, that's what you should be using. It's tremendous peace of mind to be able to communicate at home and then to be able to hit the SOS button if your life comes into peril. So last piece of Garmin tech that I took on this hunt was a Instinct 2X solar watch, and I love this thing. It has way too many features to even list. A ton of features for tracking, for navigation, for GPS, for backtracking back to your camp. Communications come through this watch if I want to tie it to my cell phone. The last couple of years I've been using Phoenix 5X from Garmin. Then I purchased the Phoenix 6X. And then one of the struggles that I had with the Phoenix at the time was when I was doing really long expeditions, I had to shut all of the configurations off on my Phoenix, or at least that's what I would do to make the battery last for as long as possible on the trip. But the face of this watch is solar. And even when I charge it, when it's charged full, it's 40 days of power. And so I won't even need the solar on the average length expedition that I'm taking. But I noticed in Alaska this year that I was wearing this, that I wasn't losing a day of power. And even I had one singular day where it was really, really bright and sunny, and I made sure to keep the watch out of my jacket or out from underneath my sweater while I was hiking. And I noticed my power grid actually went up a day on that day. So very, very functional system. I love the solar component, and I just love having a tertiary mode of navigation. I have a map on me, I have a compass on me, I have my Garmin that I'm running maps off of my cell phone, and then now I have my watch. So as something potentially would fail, I have the ultimate backup, and you can go into backtrack. This thing even has a flashlight on it, both white light and green light, all the fitness configurations that you would need as you're going through different training elements to track your heart. And yeah, it's just a really, really smart design. I like the band. If I'm being completely transparent, I have broken the band on most of the watches that I have owned over the years, because when I put my backpack on, the pack back strap pulls on the band, and oftentimes if it has a pin system or just different systems, I've broken many of them, but this one I had zero issues with, and I've worn it every day since I've gotten it. Yeah, it's really smart. It's a really, really smart watch, and the fact that they went to solar now is sick. So I love this thing. Highly recommend it. But that's my hunting gear in a nutshell. My glass, I'll literally never ever leave home without it. I think I did one trip one time without a spotting scope to try and save weight. I was miserable the whole time, because when I'd see a grizzly bear across the valley, I couldn't like dial in and really watch him. But this is my system, and I believe in all of these pieces. This part of my system is not likely to change for a very long time, other than maybe my caliber. I like trying different calibers and trying different things, and really impressive. Had a great trip, pushed this stuff through the paces. Weather was horrible. It's just big country, not a lot of animals, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of river crossings, a lot of big bears. Man, I saw some big bear tracks, but overall very rewarding. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Let me know if there's other gear pieces that you want to see. Let me know if you have any other gear recommendations. My mind is wide open, and I will mix and mash and just to find things that work for myself. And yeah, thank you for watching.